The stomach is the part of the gastrointestinal system, GI system, and it is derived from the foregut. Okay, so our GI system is derived from foregut, midgut, and hindgut. These three primitive guts, which are continuous with each other. So the foregut is giving esophagus, stomach, and the duodenum. So first we'll see the esophagus, abdominal part of the esophagus. We have already seen the thoracic part of the esophagus. Okay, and when the HNF will start, we'll see the pharyngeal part of the esophagus, the cervical part. Okay, we have seen the esophagus of the thoracic part. Okay, now we see the abdominal part of the esophagus. So it is only shorter, small fraction of the whole of the length of the esophagus. That is around 1.25 centimeter long in the abdomen. So esophageal opening of the diaphragm. So there is a diaphragm, that is the thoraco-abdominal diaphragm. So through the opening in the diaphragm, the thoracic esophagus is entering into the abdomen as a part of the as an abdominal part of the esophagus. So their opening in the diaphragm for esophagus is known as the esophageal opening. Fine. We transmit the esophagus along the esophagus, the anterior and the posterior gastric nerve, or we can say the vagal trunk more specifically, and the esophageal branches of the left gastric artery. Okay, so left gastric artery entering into through this, supplying the esophageal branch, supplying the esophagus, also enter into the esophageal opening to supply the lower part of the thoracic part of esophagus and accompanying vein. So these veins of the esophagus drain partly into the portal. Because these veins, the which are accompanying the left gastric vein, they are entering into the portal venous system, draining into the superior vena cava. The portal vein and superior vena cava, and also inferior vena cava, the azygous vein. So most specifically the superior vena cava. So there is the okay. So this is the part of the esophagus, which is the abdominal part, which is helping in the anastomosis between portal and the systemic circulation, known as the posterior systemic anastomosis. The muscular bag forming the widest and most distensible part of the digestive tube. Okay, so most interestingly, it is most distensible as compared to duodenum or the small and large intestine. Where is the location? It is occupying the epigastric, umbilical, and the left hypochondriac region. So now you know the various 9 regions of the abdomen. Okay, so epigastric, which is the middle part of the upper quadrants, umbilical, the middle part of the middle one, and the left hypochondriac region. The external features are, so we see the stomach, intestinal, and the interior of the stomach. So I will show the organ also after this lecture. You will understand all these things. So the stomach has 2 orifices or opening, which are okay. So 2 openings, the curvatures on the borders, and the 2 surfaces. So two all these are the 2 orifices, 2 borders, and the 2 surfaces, and 2 parts also. So what are these 2 orifices? These are actually 2 ends of the stomach, that is cardiac end or pyloric end, or cardiac orifice or pyloric orifice. These are the openings from esophagus to stomach, and pyloric orifice is the opening from stomach to duodenum. The curvatures are the lesser curvature and greater curvature. The right border is known as the lesser curvature, which having the smaller dimension as compared to the left one, known as the greater curvature. Fine. The 2 surfaces are the anterior or the anterosuperior surface and posterior or posterior inferior surface. Why anterosuperior or posterior inferior? Because stomach is lying not vertically completely, but slightly oblique. Okay, so that it actually is passing from from superior to, or from above downward, and slightly anteriorly and slightly toward the right side. So therefore anterior surface is slightly facing upward and posterior surface slightly directly inferior, because of the presence of the some structure in the posterior aspect of the stomach, which are included at the stomach bed. Okay. Now the two parts. These are the cardiac part and the pyloric part. Again, cardiac part is divided into fundus of the stomach and the body of the stomach. And pyloric part divided into the pyloric antrum and pyloric canal. So fundus of the stomach is here. You can see this fundus of the stomach. So that is the part of the stomach which is above the level of this cardiac orifice. So this is the cardiac orifice having the opening of the esophagus, lower end of that. Okay, so fundus you can see this whole rest of the larger part is the body, and this narrower part you can see here. This is the pyloric part divided into pyloric antrum and pyloric canal. So how will you divide it into main body part and the pyloric part? There is the on the lesser curvature. This is the lesser curvature. This is the greater curvature on the left border, and this is the pyloric end, the junction between the stomach and first part of duodenum. You can see at the lesser curvature there is the angulation. The whole borders are having the curve. Okay, maybe increase or decrease, but they are curved. But here on the lesser curvature on the lower part, there is the angulation. That is known as the angular notch or incisura angularis. Okay, so a line drawn from this angular notch, and there is a constriction. Actually, it has been shown as the more curve, but on this part there is a slight constriction on this part, means concavity. So the line joining this angular notch and this concavity on the greater curvature is the line is dividing into the main cardiac part and the pyloric part. Right. So here the larger part is known as the pyloric antrum, then pyloric canal. So not only anatomically but histologically also, depending on the types of the cells, okay, the body and the pyloric parts are divided. You will see during the histology of the stomach. Fine. So, and this is the whole anterior surface and posterior surface. So, we will see the relations of all those also. Now, the relation of the stomach. So, what is the visceral relation? Means relation to the adjacent organs nearby the stomach. The anterior surface or anterosuperior surface of the stomach is related to the liver, diaphragm, transverse colon, and the anterior abdominal wall. Means remaining lower larger part of the anterior surface is related to anterior abdominal wall. And the posterior surface of the stomach is related to structure forming the stomach bed, so on which the stomach is lying. So all of these structures forming the stomach bed are separated from the stomach by cavity of the lesser sac except spleen. Spleen is also forming the part of the stomach bed, but it is separated from the stomach by greater curvature, greater sac. So what is the structure of the stomach bed? These are the diaphragm, left kidney, left suprarenal gland, pancreas. Okay, so you can see here the sphenic artery, which is present or running over the superior border of the pancreas, kidney with the suprarenal gland, and spleen. So you can see here the spleen. So it will give like an illusion. All these structures present posterior to the stomach, forming the stomach bed, are covered by the lesser sac, but not. All the structures except the spleen are covered by the lesser sac or the peritoneal membrane of the lesser sac, but this spleen is hanging or floating into the greater sac. Okay, so always remember this. Fine. Then we'll see. Here the okay, you can see this dotted line for the outline of the stomach. So what are the relation on the anterior surface? This is the liver, you can see the left lobe of the liver is related on the visceral surface. Posterior surface of the liver, it is related to the lobe of the esophagus and the fundal part of the and upper part of the lateral curvature of the stomach. Okay, and here you can see on the left side here in the left hypochondriac region, the diaphragm will come on the fundus part. Fine. And then there is the third part here. Okay, it is already mentioned here. There is other part beyond the costal cartilage. There is lower part is in relation to the anterior abdominal wall. Okay, and again you can see here the pyloric end will again come into the relation of the right lobe of the liver along with the pyloric sphincter and this. So guys, just remember that how will you identify the upper and the lower end of the stomach? The duodenum and esophagus has been removed. So we have to always feel the lower end of the stomach. Whenever the organ, you will hold the stomach in your hand. So just feel both the ends, okay, between the fingers. So you will find that it is smooth. The upper end is short, but here the lower end you will find that there is a nodule-like structure. Okay, so this nodularity is nothing but in the presence of the pyloric sphincter. So just remember that nodule present on the lower end. Okay, then you can hold the stomach into the normal anatomical position. Fine. So this was the anterior relation. This was the posterior relation here. So you can see not shown here, but large intestine is also coming in the relation of the anterior relation of the stomach, the transverse colon. Okay. The splenic flexure, splenic flexure of the colon, and splenic artery, spleen. Okay, so here it is written. Okay, so spleen is also included in stomach bed, but separated by stomach by the cavity of greater sac. Okay, gastric nose, vessel ramified deep to the peritoneum. So all these are the structures present in the stomach bed. Again, I will repeat. The structure forming the stomach bed: diaphragm, left kidney, left suprarenal gland, pancreas, transverse mediocolon, splenic flexure of the colon. Means transverse colon is having two bendings. One is from the ascending colon on the right side under the liver, in relation to the liver, known as the hepatic flexure, and the transverse colon is bending downward to continue at the descending colon on the left side in relation to the anterior end of the spleen, known as the splenic flexure of the colon. Okay, and the splenic artery which is running above the pancreas and the spleen. So all these are forming the stomach bed. Also, we during the session of the peritoneum, I told you the various peritoneal fold. The most important were the lesser omentum and the greater omentum. So lesser omentum is attached to the peritoneal fold is attached to the lesser curvature. Okay, up to the first is the duodenum, the first part of the duodenum. Okay, and this lesser omentum will go toward the liver. Okay, which is divided into the lesser curvature divided into the hepatogastric and hepatoduodenal ligaments, and the greater curvature giving attachment to the greater omentum. So you know that the greater omentum is also known as the policeman of the abdomen, because whenever there is a infection or inflammation in any part of the stomach, in the abdomen, so it just extend and grow and cover that area of the inflammation or the infection, so that it should not spread it to the other parts of the peritoneum or peritoneal cavity. So greater curvature will be there. attached to the greater omentum. So we have seen all these lesser omentum, greater omentum, the lesser sac, greater sac in the peritoneum. So we'll see now the blood supply. After that, I will tell you about the interior. So blood supply is through the lesser curvature and greater curvature. So lesser curvature, here we'll see the left gastric artery, which is the branch of the celiac trunk, and right gastric artery. Along the greater curvature, it is supplied by the right gastroepiploic artery, which is the branch of gastroduodenal, and the left gastroepiploic artery, which is a branch of the splenic artery. And in the upper part, that is near the fundus, it is supplied by the short gastric artery, which are also branch of the splenic artery. So gastroepiploic means left gastroepiploic, and these 5 to 7 short gastric arteries are the branches of splenic artery. And the splenic artery, in turn, is the branch of the celiac trunk, which is also giving rise to the left gastric artery. And the right gastric artery is derived from the common hepatic artery. I will show you in the later diagrams. And the veins are draining into the portal. All are the accompaniment of all these arteries. Okay, through the superior mesenteric and the splenic vein, or simply through the superior mesenteric vein and the splenic vein. They are uniting to form the portal vein. You will see here this larger circular structure shown here. It is the celiac trunk. It is the first and the uppermost unpaired visceral branch of the abdominal aorta. Means abdominal aorta is from its entry from thoracic abdomen up to the right and left common celiac artery. It is giving unpaired and the paired branches. So it is giving only 3 unpaired branches. The first unpaired branch is the celiac trunk, which we can see here along the lesser curvature of the stomach. The other branch is the superior mesenteric artery, okay, and the inferior mesenteric artery. So it is very simple to remember. The main visceral branches of the abdominal aorta, which are the unpaired, single one. Okay? So that is celiac trunk, superior mesenteric artery, and the inferior mesenteric artery. So how are they related to the embryology, developmentally? So celiac trunk will supply the part of the GI or gastrointestinal tract derived from foregut. The superior mesenteric artery will supply the part of the GI derived from the midgut, and inferior mesenteric artery will supply the structure derived from the hindgut. Okay, just remember this. The celiac trunk therefore supplies the stomach, lower part of the esophagus, the first part of all these, the first and middle of the second part of the duodenum, the hepatic and the pancreatic structure, because hepatic and pancreatic structure are also derived from as a evagination from the foregut. Okay, so we'll see the celiac trunk is having the main 3 branches. One is the left gastric artery, as I already told you. Then splenic artery, they running behind the stomach as a stomach bed structure. And toward the right side, you can see it is common hepatic artery. So in relation to the gastric stomach, we only see. So this common hepatic artery is also giving rise to the right gastric artery. You can see the right gastric artery coming from common hepatic artery. Okay, and this also before right gastric artery, this common hepatic artery also giving a unique branch. It is known as the gastroduodenal artery. The gastroduodenal artery will run downward and behind the first part of the duodenum to come in the concavity of this duodenum, okay, to supply the superior pancreaticoduodenal artery and in relation to the stomach, the right gastroepiploic artery. So just remember, the right gastric artery directly coming from the common hepatic artery, which is the branch of the celiac trunk, and the right gastroepiploic artery is coming from the gastroduodenal artery, which is the branch of the common hepatic and which is the branch of celiac trunk. So ultimately, all are coming from celiac trunk. Splenic artery here, which is coming from, it is reaching posterior to the uh, stomach above the pancreas. It supplies the give the pancreatic branches to the pancreas, and after reaching near this greater curvature, here will be the presence of the spleen, as we already seen. So it will give the splenic branches and the small gastric branches to the greater curvature of the stomach toward the fundus. And on the inferior side, it will give a large branch known as the late gastroepiploic artery. Okay, so you got so left gastric artery coming from the celiac trunk, right gastric artery coming from the common hepatic artery, the right gastroepiploic artery is coming from the gastroduodenal artery, and the left gastroepiploic artery coming from again splenic artery, and short gastric artery also from splenic artery. So these are the main arterial blood supply of the stomach. Got it? So you can see here. So all these arteries are reaching to the stomach through the ligaments or the peritoneal folds. So this left gastric and right gastric are reaching to the lesser curvature to the attachment of the lesser omentum. Okay, and this gastroepiploic are reaching to the here. Uh, First, which is the right gastroepiploic, it will enter here on the so it will be entering through the attachment of greater omentum on the greater curvature, and this is the and it will enter through the gastrosplenic ligament. The left gastroepiploic artery will enter through the gastroepiploic the gastrosplenic ligament into the greater omentum of the left gastroepiploic artery. Okay. So lymphatic drainage. So it can be divided into the four lymphatic territories. So you can see these are the four territories. This is the along the lesser curvature, okay, along the greater curvature near the fundus and main lower part, and near the pyloric end. So, which are the group of the lymph node? You can see the pancreatic node, splenic lymph nodes here. This part it drain into the right gastroepiploic node in the greater omentum. Okay, the subpyloric nodes. Along the celiac trunk, hepatic node along the common hepatic artery. So these are the main lymphatic drainage of the stomach. The nerve supply, so sympathetic and parasympathetic because it is a visceral organ. So sympathetic nerve is derived from the lower from the thoracic 6 to 10 segment of the spinal cord. Okay. So what is the function of the sympathetic nerve? They are the vasomotor. Okay. The motor to the pyloric sphincter, but inhibitory the rest of the gastric musculature. So remember, for the gastrointestinal system, the sympathetic nerve is the nerve of the retention, and the parasympathetic nerve is the nerve of the emptying. Means sympathetic will it will inhibit the peristaltic movement, and it will activate the sphincteric contraction. So that if sphincter of the any sphincter is contracting, so there will be impossibility to pass the food material from one part of the GI to the other part in continuation. If sphincter is open, or relaxed, then the food can pass through the GI system. Okay. So parasympathetic, what it does, the parasympathetic or the vagal or sacral nerve, they are doing the peristaltic movement, increasing the peristaltic movement so that food can churn and can pass forward. Okay, and they are inhibiting the sphincter. But sympathetic is causing the retention. So how the retention will be caused? Retention of the food material by relaxing the muscles, that is circular and longitudinal smooth muscles of the GI system, and contracting the sphincter so that those food material can be retained in the GI system. Okay, and the pain sensation is mainly through the sympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic nerve supply is from the vagus, that is the vagal trunk, anterior and the posterior vagal trunk. So we see the anterior gastric nerve and then the posterior gastric nerve. So this anterior gastric nerve is very important. So it is the number of the gastric branches from anterior surface of the fundus and body of the stomach. The other two pyloric branches, the posterior gastric nerve and the smaller gastric branch from the posterior surface of the fundus, and large and celiac branch of the celiac plexus. Okay, so all these now are continuing from the anterior and posterior are continuing from the vagal trunk, the anterior and the posterior vagal trunk along the esophagus. So during the description of the thoracic organ, lung and the heart, I already told you when the vagus is passing through the mediastinum on the surfaces of the lung, mediastinal surface of the lung, they are dividing into the pulmonary and the cardiac plexus, which are also supplying the other viscera of the mediastinum, and they are again uniting to form the anterior and the posterior vagal trunk on the esophagus, the thoracic esophagus, and these two trunks or the vagal trunk of the anterior and the posterior vagal trunk are entering through the esophageal opening of the diaphragm into the abdominal cavity, and they are continuing over the lesser curvature of the stomach, both anterior and the posterior trunk. So you can see here, this is the anterior and this is the posterior trunk. The anterior trunk, you can see what are the branches. The hepatic branch will go toward the stomach, liver. Okay, and the rest will give the main cardiac branches, pyloric branch. Okay, and the posterior branch is also supplying same as the anterior branch. It main main branch is going toward the celiac trunk. So this parasympathetic part of the vagus branch, it will go to the celiac trunk to form the plexus around the celiac artery, along with the other sympathetic nerve. And from here, these parasympathetic and other sympathetic nerves will supply rest of the GI system and other abdominal organs. Okay. So vagus nerve first come in the abdominal cavity to raise the stomach. Okay, stomach is the main part. Then it will give the branch to the rest other parts of the abdominal cavity through the celiac plexus of the nerve. Okay. You can see here the anterior nerve of the letter J. So these small branches, you can see the end of the vessel nerve, which are looking like a foot. Okay, the nerve foot. So this is known as the nerve of the letter J. So they are very important in the case of the increased secretion of the hydrochloric acid or gastric juice. Okay, which is lead to the hyperacidity. So sometimes the letter J nerve can be cut, okay, dissected from the in the living person, so that secretion of the acid will be lesser, because parasympathetic is the secretomotor. Okay, that will increase the secretion of the gastric juice. Okay, the more uncontrolled secretion of the gastric juice can lead to the ulcer due to the hyperacidity. So this can be controlled by the various medicines we already take in day to day life, and also it can be corrected by this surgical procedure if the conservative treatment is not helping. Okay. Now the interior of the stomach. So when you will cut open the stomach through the greater curvature, so in the empty stomach we will see they are thrown into the folds called the gastric rugate. So just remember this gastric rugate. Okay. There are the random folds of the mucous membrane which is disappearing when the stomach is distended by the bolus of the food. It will distend, so the gastric rugate will disappear, but will reappear when the stomach is empty. Okay, so this fold is temporary, but the folds in the small intestine are the permanent. So why these folds are temporary in the stomach during the distension they are lost, but the small intestine when they are distending, their fold, the mucosal folds of the small intestine are not disappearing. The reason is histological, the microscopic. The submucosa. When you see the sections of the all the GI system, you will find the four layers. These four layers from inner to outer are the mucous membrane. Okay. Then there is the submucosa. That is between the mucous membrane and the muscular layer. The third layer will be the muscular and the fourth is the serosa. So that submucosa is having the larger density of the collagen fibers. Okay. So they are more tough, more firm as compared to the mucous membrane or the lamina propria of the mucous membrane. So if some mucus is involved in any mucosal fold, so those folds will be permanent. Okay, that will not collapse. But if the mucous membrane is not taking the submucous layer along with them, then it will be temporary. So here the gastric rugae are mainly consisting of the mucous membrane, that is epithelial cells and the only lamina propria. So lamina propria is the very lax part of the GI system, which is having the less number of the collagen fiber, more number of the reticular fibers. Okay, so gastric rugae is therefore temporary because it is not taking the submucous layer. But in the rest, other parts of the folds of the small intestine, okay, that is the circular, uh, the semicircular folds in the duodenum and other part, they are having the permanent structure, like villi, villi also. So mucous surface, we can see the various gastric pits. Fine. So we all see in the microscopic section or the slide of the stomach, the submucous coat, the muscle coat, that is the longitudinal fibers, which is outer layer, and the inner circular fibers. Okay, and the deepest layer is consisting of the oblique fiber. So here, the stomach is consisting of the three layers of the muscles. These are the longitudinal fibers. Outer one, the middle layer is the inner circular. The deepest is the oblique fibers. Because the stomach is main organ to help the churning of the food. So it requires to pressurize the food bolus from all the sides, not only from two dimensions, that is circular or longitudinal. It has to be pressed, compressed, ground, and the outermost layer is the serous coat. The serous layer. Now these are the applied aspects. So gastric pain, that is mainly due to the hyperacidity, is felt in the epigastrium. That is in the between the costal margin or the episternal angle. So this epigastric fossa is there, so you will feel the pain, and it is supplied by the segment of the T6 to T9 of the spinal cord. Okay, so that is the main dermatome of that epigastric region. Okay, so that is the reperitoneum. So it supplies the upper part of the abdominal wall. What is the peptic ulcer? So peptic ulcer is maybe the gastric or duodenal. Peptic means actually what is the ulcer? What ulcer is the erosion in the mucosal lining of the stomach or any part. Okay, so it is more common in the stomach and the first part of the duodenum. So why it is known as the peptic? So peptic is derived from the pepsin. So you know the main secretion of the pepsin of this stomach. Okay, it is helping in the digestion of the food. That is the protein material of. So these pepsin materials are activated by the more number of the hydrochloric acid. So they are activated by, and this can also damage. It is more in enormous quantity. It can damage the mucous membrane, the lower part of the mucous membrane of the stomach and first part of the duodenum. So the gastric ulcer are common people who are always in hurry, worry mostly about means stress condition. The today life in the uh, now it is not divided. Maybe in the city or the rural, all are same now. So the more number of the gastric ulcers. Okay, spicy curry and all these things. The quality of the food also causing this. So this can be visualized. Get the more ulcer and if you require the more treatment beyond the conservative treatment. So first, so it can be diagnosed by the endoscopy. Okay, we can directly visualize this ulcer through the endoscopy, known as the esophagogastroduodenoscopy or OGD-scopy or esophagogastroduodenoscopy. So this is the more common nowadays to do the OGD scopy for visualization of the ulcers. Fine. Why this is even more important to know about the ulcer? Because if they are being eroded, not corrected properly, so it can lead to the exposure of the blood vessel to the lumen and to the acidic content of the stomach, and it can erode the blood and it can lead to the hemorrhage. Okay. So in any case of the omitting of the blood, that is known as the hematemesis or the hemoptysis. So in that case, you have to see if there is a gastric ulcer. Okay, so they are the more profound. So hemorrhage in the case of this gastric ulcer is more common on the anterior surface of the first part of the duodenum, and that can also lead to the perforation of the whole wall of the stomach or the duodenum. So this is more common on the posterior surface. The bleeding is more common on the anterior gastric ulcer, and the perforation is more common on the posterior surface of the stomach. So content of the stomach can leak out from the stomach through the perforation in the lesser sac because it is more common on the posterior surface. So this is more common finding in the gastric ulcer. And it is not there, but I will just describe here. There is the other condition known as the CA stomach. CA means carcinoma stomach. Okay, the epithelial cell carcinoma of the stomach. So it can be detected in the early stages because it is asymptomatic. Okay, it is only found in the advanced stage when this cell has been spread locally and the metastatically to the distant organ. Then we can find that the patient has been affected by gastric carcinoma. So that is very difficult. If it is not detected early, then it is difficult to save the life of that patient, CH stomach. So we'll see the abdominal part of the esophagus is the site of the portosystemic anastomosis. Okay, the veins are draining into the hemiazygous vein, and that is going into the superior vena cava. Other veins drain into the esophageal veins, left gastric vein, and portal vein. So you got how the superior vena cava and portal vein are getting anastomosed on the surface of the esophagus, abdominal part of the esophagus. Fine. Thank you.